The cashier's note said, "Don't sign anything." That morning began simple and familiar. I set a porcelain cup by the sink and warmed a slice of bread. The smell rose and settled over the kitchen like an old blanket. Emily texted that she would drive me to the downtown branch, that the account update was easy, that she would handle the details. She is my daughter-in-law, married to my son, and I am Helen, 58. The promise was a tidy family trust. The risk, if I missed something, was losing both my savings and my say. I told myself to stay steady. Trouble often hides in plain paper. By Tuesday, the sky looked ordinary, which helped. We parked close. She walked ahead in neat heels and a brighter smile than usual. "Just sign, Mom," she said, like I was already on her side. I carried my checkbook because it felt grown and grounding, something I chose to bring. A small anchor is still an anchor. Inside, the branch hummed with quiet talk, and we sat across from a clerk with a soft voice and clear eyes. She asked for ID, then pushed a stack of pages across the desk. Emily tapped the last page with a painted nail. "This one? Then we're done." Another short sentence. Easy, safe, done. My name was printed above a line. The line felt like a thin cliff. "Give me a minute," I said. Emily laughed. "Of course. It's routine." "Routine can be a lie," said gently. The clerk's gaze lifted to mine and held. Her hand slid beneath the pages, slow, careful, like she was fixing a crooked stack. A folded slip appeared under the top sheet, face down. I lifted it with 2 fingers. The ink was quick, slanted, and certain. "Don't sign anything." My breath caught, not from fear alone, from recognition. Someone else saw a trap here. I set the slip under my checkbook and spoke low. "What is this trust?" In plain words. Emily leaned in. "It keeps everything simple. I can help you manage bills. It's a family thing." "Whose money moves where?" I asked. "To a joint care fund," she said. "You stay in control. It's just a formality." Short lines gathered in my throat. "Who controls withdrawals?" "We both do." "How soon?" "Right away." My pulse calmed as if a decision was finding me. The note warmed against my palm, thin but solid. The clerk cleared her throat. Emily's smile thinned. "It needs your signature," Emily said. "We have the notary ready." I placed my pen down. Another quiet sentence. "I do not consent." "I'm going to read," I said. "You have," she said. "We talked about this." I turned each page. Terms hid in nice words. The language bent toward irrevocable, toward authorized agent. In simple speech, it meant I would be a guest in my own account. A guest with house rules that could change. I pictured my kitchen, that porcelain cup, how ordinary things can outlast storms if you hold them. "I need a copy," I said. "I need time." Emily's cheeks changed tone. "We scheduled this. People are waiting." "Then they can keep waiting," I said. 3 tight lines followed, and they sounded like metal. "Sign the page." "No. You promised." I kept my voice steady. "I promised to listen. I didn't promise to agree." The clerk spoke softly. "You have options." It was the most careful kind of help, the kind that doesn't cost her job. I nodded, just a fraction, enough to show I heard. I closed the folder and lifted my checkbook. The slip hid just under the cover, small as a leaf and just as alive. I pushed the papers back across the desk. "I'm not signing today." Emily sat back, eyes hard. "Is this about trust?" "Because I'm trying to protect you." Protection is a word that can carry a knife. "My decision stands," I said. "We can revisit with an attorney." Another boundary, spoken out loud so it couldn't be edited later. If I signed, I could lose the home I built and the dignity that gives it shape. I would not sign. Emily's voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "You're making a scene for no reason." "No scene," I said. "A choice." She glanced at the clerk, then at the door, then back at me as if she could move me by staring. The clerk stacked the pages, neat and neutral. Paper still finds its order when people do not. We walked out without speaking. The parking lot felt wider than when we arrived. Emily clicked the key fob so hard the lights flashed twice. "Get in," she said. I stood outside the car, holding the checkbook, feeling the thin shape of that note through the cover. A small anchor is still an anchor. I opened the passenger door and sat slow, not from age, but from care. She gripped the wheel, then let it go. "I lined this up for us. For the family." "For the family," I said, "should not mean for me." She turned, words tight and bright, as if spit polished for impact. "You just ruined everything." I looked at the branch doors, then down at my hands, then at her reflection in the side mirror. When trust breaks, it sounds like nothing at first, just a seatbelt clicking home. "For all of us," she added, each word a push. She said I ruined everything. For all of us. Her smile never reached her eyes again. Thursday afternoon in the back garden, I trimmed the roses and poured 2 cups of tea. The routine steadied me. I heard the crisp snip of the shears and felt myself breathe in time with it. Emily arrived with a bunch of supermarket lilies and a practiced tilt of the head. "This is a thank you," she said, setting the flowers by the doorframe and reaching for the nearest cup. Sun caught the rim and turned it into a bright ring, but the glow slid off her face. I kept the small table between us and let the steam drift as cover. "I wanted to say thanks for trusting me," she said, sitting before I offered. "Yesterday was a step. We'll get all the boring stuff handled." "I didn't sign," I said. "That was the step." She laughed like we were sharing a joke. "You know what I mean." "I do," I said. "I mean what I said." She kept arranging petals that didn't need arranging. "I'm managing a lot. You could make it easier." "I'll make it clear," I said. "No more papers brought here. No more surprises at any counter. If you want something from me, send it in plain words. I'll review with a neutral set of eyes." Her head tilted again, the angle she uses before a push. "You don't trust me?" "I'm setting terms," I said. "That's different." 3 tight lines followed, quick as cards turned. "It's just family." "Then it can wait." "You're making this hard." I let the tea cool. Boundaries are new until they're old. She stood, smoothed her blouse, and lifted the grocery bag she'd left by the chair. "I'll put these away for you," she said, already inside the kitchen. I followed a moment later and watched her open the pantry like she owned each shelf. "See? Help," she said. "Leave the bag by the counter," I answered. "I'll finish." She paused, a slight flinch hiding behind politeness. "Of course." Her smile reset. "Rest today. I've got a few calls to make." By evening, the house felt careful. Claire knocked, saw the lilies, and raised an eyebrow. "Pretty," she said. "Sharp scent, though." "She came to help," I said. The words tasted like a test. Claire took my hand anyway. We let the quiet settle until it was useful, not heavy. She left me with a look that said, "Keep your head." I promised myself I would. Later, I heard a voice in the living room. Emily had come back with the spare key she forgot to return and taken a seat on the couch, phone pressed close. I stood in the hallway, not hiding, just listening to what was already in my home. "She's slipping," Emily whispered. "Hard to reason with lately. I had to step in." A pause. "Of course I'm documenting. This is for her own good." I stepped into the room. "Give me the key." She ended the call without a goodbye. "I was checking on you," she said. "You sounded off earlier." "The key," I said. She fished it from her pocket and dropped it into my palm. "Satisfied?" "I'm steady," I said, "and I will not be described otherwise." She stared like she was choosing a new story. "You're fragile right now," she said gently. "People worry." "I am not a rumor," I said. "Do not make me one." She reached for the grocery bag that I had set by the chair, as if proof of helpfulness lived inside it. "I'm trying here." "You're trying to own the version," I answered. The spikes came fast, then slowed on purpose. "Why so cruel?" "I'm precise." "You're hurting us." I shifted the bag to the floor. "No more phone calls from my couch," I said. "No more keys that aren't mine, requests in writing or not at all." She moved to the doorframe and looked back like a portrait. Soft light, hard intent. "This doesn't have to get messy," she said. "It already is," I said, "because you made it sweet." When she left, the house exhaled. I took the key to the drawer where I keep steady things and wrote a short note to myself. No private access, no half-truths, no rushed signatures. A small rule is still a rule. I set my phone on the table and considered doing nothing, waiting for the next move. Doing nothing is how traps set. I dialed the branch number from the card the clerk had given me. "I need to confirm the status of a trust proposal from yesterday," I said. Nothing was signed. The line clicked. "One moment," the voice said. Another click, longer. "Ma'am, it shows submission on file." "Submission of what?" "A family trust document." I kept my words clean. "I didn't sign. Send me a copy." More holding. "It lists your name as approved." "By whose hand?" "It appears to be you." I looked at the grocery bag on the floor, at the smooth line of the doorframe where she'd leaned, at the tea ring drying on the counter. My jaw tightened, then loosened. "Email me the pages," I said. "Right now." "Yes." I ended the call and folded both hands on the table. The stakes were simple. If I did nothing, I would be rewritten. I opened the back door and let the garden air cool my face, not as comfort, but as clarity. I wasn't afraid of truth. I was afraid of lies told patiently. The email pinged a minute later. I did not open it yet. I stood instead and locked the front door from the inside, a small act that reset the house to my side. Then I sat and braced myself to read. My name was already used against me. My signature was on something I never saw. The envelope arrived early, thick and official. I slid it open on the kitchen counter and pulled out a photocopy stamped with the bank's crest. The pages were smooth, the kind that stick to your fingers when you're nervous. My handwriting stared back at me, slanted, neat, entirely mine. And yet it wasn't. Someone had forged it perfectly. The document said half my savings were now transferred to a joint care fund under Emily's name. The air in the kitchen felt heavy, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I ran a thumb over the ink until it smudged, half hoping it would confess. "How could she know my loops and lines?" I whispered. The question had no safe answer. I thought back to months earlier, to the day I overheard Emily whispering to my son, "Once the accounts merge, we can start the new house." She had spoken like it was inevitable, like my consent was an afterthought. I took the document to the bank that same afternoon. The clerk who had slipped me that warning note was gone. A new manager stood behind the counter, polished and polite. I laid the copy down flat. "This signature isn't mine," I said. "It's been copied." He studied it briefly, then smiled the way people do when they plan to say no. "This has already been approved by a notary, ma'am. The trust deed is active." "I never signed in front of anyone," I said, "and I didn't appoint an agent." He turned the paper toward me, tapping the bottom line. "It bears your handwriting. That's the notary's validation. If you'd like to contest, you can submit a formal objection." "I'm submitting one now." His tone softened, practiced empathy wrapped in procedure. "That will trigger a review, but the funds are already moved." My stomach sank. Moved. Past tense. I wasn't fighting a threat. I was chasing damage already done. At home, I spread the papers out under the lamp. The ink reflected dull against the folder's sheen. Claire stopped by, saw me hunched over the table, and didn't need to ask. "What happened?" she said. "She took half my savings," I told her. "On paper that looks real." Claire leaned closer. "Then we make new paper that tells the truth." Her certainty steadied me. We made copies of every envelope, every date. She drafted a statement by hand, her writing neat but urgent. "If they think you're confused, this shows the opposite," she said. "Why would she do this?" I asked. Claire folded the statement into an envelope. "Greed is a quiet hunger. It eats through families first." The next morning, I called Emily. "I need to ask you something." "Sure," she said. "What's wrong?" "You filed a document under my name." I don't know what you're talking about. You do. It's a trust deed. A pause stretched between us. Then she spoke in her sweetest voice. You told me to handle it. Maybe you forgot? I didn't forget, I said. You forged me. She laughed softly. Mom, don't say things you'll regret. You're tired. Let me bring dinner tonight. I don't want dinner, I said. I want my account back. The line went dead. Silence filled the room, the cruel kind that feels staged. I looked down at the photocopy again. My own name was weaponized, my identity turned into evidence against me. The stakes were simple. If I didn't fight this, I'd lose not just money, but the power to decide what my life was worth. Claire drove me to the branch later that day. We handed the objection letter to the same manager, who accepted it without eye contact. We'll review and respond, he said. Expect correspondence in writing. I wanted to believe the system would protect me, but trust is a fragile thing once broken. As we left, Claire touched my shoulder. You did the right thing, she said. I hope the right thing still matters, I answered. Back home, I locked the photocopy in a folder and slid it into the drawer beside my bed. The paper crinkled as it settled, a small sound, but it carried weight. It wasn't just about stolen money anymore. It was about stolen proof of who I was, written in ink that wasn't mine. She didn't steal just money. She stole my voice. They toasted to new beginnings. I didn't choose. The smell of roast dinner filled the house hours before anyone arrived. It should have been comforting, the same scent that used to mean family, laughter, safety. But that night it felt staged, like a memory rehearsed for show. The table gleamed under candlelight, the photo frame on the mantel showing us frozen in a happier year. I set out the wine glasses myself, hands steady but heart unsure. I could sense a plan behind the politeness. When they walked in, Emily carried a cake and a tone that was too cheerful. For the woman who made it all possible, she said. My son followed, balancing gifts he hadn't wrapped. Claire arrived last, holding a small plant instead of flowers. Her quiet presence always softened rooms, even ones thick with tension. Dinner began with easy talk about work and weather, the sort of small chatter people use to delay truth. Then Emily lifted her glass. To Mom, she said, smiling at me across the candles, for donating half her savings so we can finally build the new house. Everyone laughed, even my son. The sound hit like a slap disguised as applause. My hand tightened around the stem of my glass. Claire's eyes met mine from the far end of the table. Her expression said everything. She's lying. You know it. I waited for someone else to notice, to ask, to question. But the conversation rolled on, loud and bright, like nothing had been said. I felt invisible at my own birthday. The spikes came sharp and quick. You did agree, didn't you? I did not. You must have forgotten. Emily's smile was steady, practiced. She's been under a lot of stress, she added, directing it to the table more than to me. It's been confusing lately, with all the paperwork. The implication landed cleanly. A few nods, sympathetic murmurs. Polite dismissal wrapped as concern. Gaslighting, but dressed for dinner. My son reached across the table, squeezing my hand as if to calm me. Let's not make this a scene, he said softly. Emily worked so hard on tonight. I stared at the candles between us, their flicker pulling shadows across the plates. I could smell the roast cooling in the kitchen, the sweetness turning heavy. I remembered birthdays when he was small, cards he made from notebook paper, handwriting crooked and proud. Those nights felt like truth. This one felt like performance. I set my glass down carefully, stood. I never agreed to give anyone my savings, I said. Not $1. That's the truth. The room stiffened. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hold its tick. Emily's reply came fast. Mom, sit down. You're remembering wrong. I'm not, I said. I've seen the papers. She let out a light laugh, that syrupy sound she used when things turned against her. She's mixing things up again. It's okay. We'll talk later. Claire spoke from the end of the table, her voice quiet but firm. I think she remembers just fine. Emily's eyes snapped toward her, but Claire didn't flinch. A moment later, my son cleared his throat. "We're supposed to celebrate, remember?" he said, almost pleading. "Let's keep the peace." Keep the peace. Always the line that follows every betrayal. I sat down again, not from defeat, but calculation. I needed to see how far they'd go to make their version the only version. The rest of the night unfolded like a play where everyone already knew their parts. Emily passed cake slices, smiling for the photos, her hand resting easily on my son's arm. He didn't see the control hidden in it. When the plates were cleared, Claire helped me gather dishes in the kitchen. She leaned in close. "You were brave," she whispered, "but they're twisting it faster than you can correct it." "I know," I said. "I just needed to speak once before they rewrote it completely." We washed in silence for a moment. Water dripped from the edge of a glass, catching the candlelight through the doorway. I thought of that photo frame again, us frozen, smiling, proof of a time when belief came easily. I realized something cruel. They would keep using my image long after they stopped hearing my voice. When everyone left, the house felt drained of air. The candles had burned low, leaving only the faint smell of wax and roast. I picked up the empty wineglass and saw the prints of all their fingers overlapping mine. That was how erasure looked in real life, layer by layer, until ownership blurred. I locked the door, then stood at the window and watched their car pull away. My son laughed at something Emily said as she leaned her head against his shoulder. The sound reached me faintly through the glass, warm, normal, false. I thought about how quickly a lie becomes truth when told over dinner and sealed with dessert. The warmth that once lived in this house had been replaced by performance. The stakes were no longer just money. They were memory itself. If I didn't defend my version, I'd disappear from my own story. They started calling me forgetful instead of mom. The papers I hid were suddenly gone. Mourning kept its ordinary shape until I opened the bedroom dresser. The drawer I always locked stood ajar, the key twisted. Emptiness stared back where neat stacks should be. The folders lay flat. I saw the space where each envelope had lived pale rectangles against darker wood. That pattern told the story faster than panic could. I steadied myself by naming what my eyes could confirm. I kept that drawer for order. Letters from the bank, receipts, dates in my slow hand, proof that I was not confused, cautious. I had turned the key last night. I lifted the drawer key, held it up, then set it down as if weight could restore authority. 3 calls, then action. First to the bank. I need replacement copies. Then mail them again. Second to Claire. Someone opened my drawer. She said, "I'm coming." Third to the police desk. "There's been a break-in. No doors forced. Documents taken." They promised a report number. Claire arrived with calm, and we studied the damage. The torn envelope on top was the only thing left. "They want you rattled," she said. "Stay with facts." "I had every letter," I said. "Now I have absence." "Absence counts," she said. "Write it down." We listed what was missing in a spiral notebook. 2 bank letters, a receipt, the notice about the hearing hold, the copy of my objection. I called the branch again and asked for certified duplicates. The clerk put me on hold, then returned with a careful tone. "We can reissue. Allow a few days." "A few days is time to rewrite me," I said. "Send them today." After we hung up, Emily called. Her number filled the screen. I answered because refusal can be used against you. Her voice jumped straight to anger. "How could you humiliate us?" "You entered my house," I said. "You took my papers." "I've done nothing wrong," she said. "You're making up stories again." "Return the envelope." "What envelope?" "The one you tore." She changed lanes. "People are worried. Maybe we should talk to someone official about your memory." "That suggestion is noted," I said. "So is your spare key. You'll give it back." She tried sympathy. "I was helping. You misplaced things." "I did not misplace trust," I said. "You did." She ended the call. The quiet after wasn't peace. It was pressure. I wrote down what she said while the words were still alive. The officer came by, looked at the drawer, took statements, and left without promises. That felt honest. Institutions move slow. I don't need sirens. I need a record that says I am not imagining theft. We ate toast, standing up. Claire asked, "What next?" "We limit access," I said. "No more keys, no new visits without notice. Requests in writing only." "And consequences?" she asked. "If the bank stalls, we escalate through a lawyer. First, we rebuild the file." We began. I photographed the vacant spaces, the torn edge, the twisted key, then printed each picture and wrote a line under it. "The stakes are plain. If I can't prove my version, they will replace it with theirs." Near dusk, I stood at the drawer again and closed it until the latch caught. The lock turned smooth. Claire slid the spare key into an envelope with my name across the front. We sealed it and placed it on the mantel where eyes would find it first. We stood for a time, not speaking, until the quiet felt earned. A message from the bank promised duplicates by morning. I answered with 2 words only. "Received, confirmed." I looked at the drawer one last time and felt tired, not weak. I had thought I was fighting confusion. Now I understood the battle. Coordinated erasure, done in whispers and missing pages. If I lost the papers, I'd lose myself next. He believed me without flinching. That was the first thing that broke the fog. Everyone else hesitated before answering me. He didn't. Claire had introduced us that afternoon, her hand on my shoulder as if to steady me. "David used to be an attorney," she said. "He's retired but still sharper than most." His office smelled faintly of rain and paper. Files lined the shelves in neat, lived-in rows. When I told him what Emily had done, the forged trust, the stolen papers, he didn't blink. He just opened a yellow pad and started writing. "Let's start by proving you never authorized that trust," he said. "It's always about the paper trail." His voice had no pity, only direction, and that difference made me breathe easier. I placed the folder of copies on his desk. "The originals were taken," I said. "Then we rebuild," he said. "You kept photocopies?" "Yes, enough to show pattern." He nodded. "We'll file a formal complaint with the bank and request handwriting analysis. Once they know there's scrutiny, they'll freeze the account to protect themselves." I watched his pen move across the form, steady, calm. The sound of it reminded me of how silence feels before a decision. I signed where he pointed. For the first time since the forgery, I felt like someone saw me as capable, not fragile, not confused. When we were done, he looked up. "They may push back. Emily will fight to keep her version alive. Let her. Truth needs patience." "Patience isn't my strong suit," I said. "Not anymore." He smiled faintly. "It will be." That night, the house felt less heavy. I laid the folder on the kitchen table where the light hit the pages. Proof, even partial, changes air. Claire called. "How did it go?" "He believes me," I said. "Good. Belief's the first crack." The next morning, the bank called. "We've received your complaint," the voice said. "Your account is frozen pending review." "Frozen?" I repeated. The word felt like relief disguised as caution. It meant safety, but also a pause, a forced stillness before resolution. By noon, Emily called. Her tone was clipped. "You filed something against me?" "I filed to correct a crime." "You're accusing family." "I'm protecting myself." She laughed, short and sharp. "You've let outsiders poison you." "Outsiders? You mean honesty?" "Mom, this could destroy Mark's trust." "Then Mark should hear the truth." Her voice rose. "You'll regret this." I looked at the phone as if it were a weapon that had misfired. I ended the call. My heart didn't race this time. It just settled into certainty. Anger can't win against evidence that breathes. Later, David sent a copy of the affidavit by courier. His note said, "Keep this safe. It's your spine until they admit what they did." The document was dry legal phrasing, but every line carried weight. It confirmed that the bank had accepted my complaint, that my signature would undergo formal review, and that withdrawals were suspended until results returned. I ran my fingers over the paper, smooth, heavy, and realized that touch can sometimes feel like recovery. That evening, Claire came by with groceries and set them down beside the briefcase on my counter. "I saw the look on her face earlier," she said. "She won't let go easily. She said she'd make me regret this." Claire leaned against the counter. "Then she's already losing. People only threaten when the ground shifts." We made tea without speaking much. The sound of rain against the window filled the gaps. When it eased, I thought of David's words again. Truth needs patience. Maybe patience wasn't weakness after all. Maybe it was endurance dressed in quiet. I tucked the affidavit into the folder, locked it in the drawer that still carried scars from the last break-in, and wrote the date across the top. Small acts of order, small defiance. The reversal had begun, slow, fragile, but real. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. She said she'd make me regret this. The cashier who warned me was gone. I returned to the bank on a gray morning, the kind where everything looks half-finished. The same glass doors, the same scent of polish and paper, but not the same faces. I asked for her by name. The manager didn't even look up from his screen when he answered. "She no longer works here." "Did she quit?" I asked. "She was transferred," he said. "No forwarding contact." Transferred. The word landed wrong. Too neat, too quick. I asked when it happened. "Last week," he said. I'd spoken to her 3 days earlier. The timeline didn't match. I pressed again. "Was it related to my complaint?" He finally looked at me, eyes flat, and said, "I'm not at liberty to discuss personnel matters." It wasn't refusal. It was a warning disguised as policy. I scanned the counter, the pen stand, the partition where she used to sit. Her absence left a hollow that felt bigger than one person. That note she'd slipped under the folder, "Don't sign anything," had started all of this. Now, both she and the evidence of that moment were gone. I asked about the security footage from that day. The manager's smile tightened. "Cameras overwrite every 30 days, he said. "It's gone. Gone like her name from the schedule. Gone like truth from record." I stood there longer than I should have, watching the reflection of my own face in the glass partition. The stakes had changed. This wasn't just a family betrayal anymore. It was an erasure in progress, sanctioned by silence. When I left, I filed a written request to preserve any remaining data from the system logs. "Please confirm receipt," I told the clerk. He nodded, eyes darting toward the manager. Fear makes allies temporary. Outside, I called Claire. "She's gone," I said. "No trace, no contact." "That's deliberate," she said. "They're tightening the circle." "Then I'll widen mine," I said. "Someone saw what happened." She sighed. "They'll wear you down with delays, Helen. That's how they win, paper by paper." "Then I'll answer with persistence by persistence." That afternoon, I sent copies of every communication to David. He replied an hour later. "This transfer isn't random. I'll request her employment record formally. Don't engage directly again." But by evening, Emily called. Her tone carried that awful brightness people use before saying something cruel. "Heard you were back at the bank," she said. "Still stirring things up?" "You're well informed," I said, almost like someone there reports to you. She laughed lightly. "You sound paranoid. Maybe take a break from all this." "I will," I said, "after I find out who you're paying." Her silence stretched, then she snapped, "You've become impossible." The line clicked dead. That sound, cut off mid-breath, told me I'd struck near truth. I sat at the table, folder open, letters spread like cards. One line of ink caught the afternoon light, faint but real. I imagined the cashier's face again, calm, certain, young. She had risked her job to warn me. Now she'd vanished without a word. People don't disappear for nothing. They're moved to protect someone. Claire came over that night. "It's collusion," she said. "Someone inside feeds her updates." "I know," I said. "But if they can erase her, they can erase me." "You're not easy to erase," she said. "You write everything down." I smiled faintly. Then I'll keep writing until it's undeniable. We drank tea in silence. The house felt smaller, the walls closer, but I didn't mind. Pressure, I'd learned, can harden resolve. I took out the receipt from my first visit, the date, the transaction number, and placed it in a new envelope. One more thread in the chain they couldn't cut completely. That night, before I turned off the light, I thought of the cameras again. Someone had deleted footage on purpose, knowing it would protect her lie. But systems forget what people remember. Memory, when written, survives rotation. I folded the receipt, wrote the date across the top, and whispered to myself, "They'll have to outlast me to bury this." It felt like they'd erased her to erase me. A letter arrived saying I owed $48,000. It sat beneath the door like an accusation. I tore the envelope and slid the notice across the table beside my calculator, as if numbers could steady me. The paper rasped when I unfolded it, a dry scrape that made my teeth ache. It said I had co-signed a business loan for Emily. It listed dates I never saw, a branch I never visited, and my name where it didn't belong. I read it twice, then once more. Reading doesn't turn lies into truth. It only teaches you where they live. I dialed David and kept my voice level. "A loan just appeared," I said. "They say I owe $48,000. "Bring it now," he answered. "Don't respond to anyone else." At his office, he laid the pages flat and traced the signature with a capped pen. "Same imitation," he said. "Same hesitation in the loop. They've reused the forgery and built a new trap." "Why raise debt?" I asked. "To corner you," he said. "Debt is leverage. It makes people accept smaller wrongs to escape a larger one." I felt the old urge to apologize for causing trouble. I refused it. "File everything you can," I said, "and file it today." He nodded and drafted a fraud complaint for the bank and the Consumer Bureau. "This adds weight," he said. "It's not just your word. It's your word backed by process. We'll request the source file and the notary's log." On the way home, the notice rode beside me like an unwelcome passenger. I laid it in the folder and locked the drawer. My phone buzzed with messages before I had even put the key away. Claire texted first. "Saw a post. You okay?" "What post?" she called instead. "Emily put up a sweet paragraph about elder scams. Said you'd been targeted and that she was protecting family resources. People are praising her." The smear moved faster than paperwork. I opened my email and saw 3 notes from church friends. Each one asked if I needed help, the kind that arrives with soft voices and harder judgments. I answered none of them. Compassion offered to the wrong story still wounds. Emily called next. I let it ring twice before I answered. "Hey," she said brightly. "Did you get the letter? Don't panic. It's just a formality." "You forged another document," I said. "I would never," she said. "You agreed months ago. Maybe you forgot." "I never agreed," I said. "You don't remember the meeting?" "There was no meeting." Her tone cooled. "You're making this worse. People are asking questions." "Good," I said. "They should." She tried one more angle. "Think of Mark. Think of the stress you're putting on him." "Think of the stress you're putting on me." Silence, then the edge. "You're going to lose," she whispered. I ended the call and wrote every line while it was still warm in my head. Then I sat with the calculator and added nothing, because nothing I did on that keypad could erase $48,000. Numbers are honest even when people aren't. If I didn't stop this, interest would become punishment. The stakes were simple. If I bowed to the debt, I'd be recast as a confused woman trying to clean up her own mess. If I fought, I might be believed after they finished trying to break me. I chose to fight. That evening, David arrived with a courier's envelope. "Sign here," he said. "The complaints are filed, time-stamped. The bank must answer in writing within a set period. We also asked for the notary's scheduling record. If they can't show the appointment, the claim begins to collapse." "Will that be enough?" "It begins to be enough," he said. "You're allowed to be tired. You're not allowed to stop." We drank tea at my table. The room felt smaller since the birthday dinner, but smaller rooms can still hold truth. Claire joined us and slid her phone over. "Listen to what she told Dana," she said. The message was syrup over steel. I was under influence. I was being used. I was not myself lately. 3 lies in 1 sentence, David murmured. She's flooding the zone. Answer nothing publicly. We'll speak on paper. People will believe her, I said. For a while, he said. Then they'll meet the facts. Night gathered. I filed every copy into the folder and wrote the date across the spine. I placed the envelope beside the calculator, a pairing that looked almost normal from a distance. But distance is a luxury I no longer had. I locked the drawer and put the key in my pocket. My phone lit again. Another message from a friend, heavy with concern that tasted like doubt. I didn't answer. I walked to the window and watched the street where nothing moved except leaves. In the stillness, I heard that first rasp of paper again and knew what it meant. They had tried to turn a warning into a bill. I closed the curtains and said it out loud so the walls would remember. They wanted me broke before I was believed. A white envelope changed everything again. It was on the doormat when I opened the door, thin and official, stamped with a logo that made my stomach tighten. The paper felt cool from the porch tiles. I carried it to the table and slid it clean. Inside was a notice that named a date, a room, and a panel. Arbitration. 2 Fridays from now. Downtown. 2 weeks. I called David before I read it twice. It's here, I said. Good, he answered. We stop whispering and go on record. Bring it over. At his desk, he flattened the page with his palm and skimmed. They'll seat 3 on the panel, he said. 1 from the bank list, 1 neutral, 1 agreed by both. He glanced up. Expect performance. Will she be there? Yes, he said. I exhaled slowly. Fear turned into focus. Then we prepare. We prepare, he echoed. Start with the spine. You have the cashier note, the photocopied deed, the loan letter, the freeze notice, and the police file number. Put them in order by date. Make 2 copies of everything. 1 set for me, 1 backup. I'll label the tabs. Short labels, he said. Plain words win. Back home, I set the folder on the table and cleared the surface until it was only wood and light and paper. I wrote dates in the top corner of each page. The photocopy of the forged deed looked smug even in black and white. The loan notice sat beside the calculator as if daring me to count what I did not owe. Preparation is armor. Claire came by with tea and a list. Practice answers, she said. Short, direct. We moved through the likely lines. Did you sign anything? No. Were you present before a notary? No. Do you understand the account terms? Yes, she nodded. Again, slower. I answered each question as if I were teaching my own history to a stranger. Repetition made the words muscular. I would not blink. By evening, the house had turned into a quiet office. I timed how long it took me to find a document from memory. I cut that time in half by shifting tabs. I wrote a 1-sentence description on a sticky for each piece. What it is, why it matters. I removed every word that sounded like pleading and left only facts. The timeline formed across the table. The warning slip, the forged trust, the theft from the drawer, the vanished cashier, the debt that wasn't, the freeze, and now this hearing. I called the number on the notice to confirm attendance. Please state your name for the docket, the clerk said. I did. You'll receive door time and room number by email, he added. Bring government ID. Will the panel accept document copies? Copies for reference, he said. Originals if available. The stakes stayed simple. If I faltered now, her story would set like concrete. If I stood steady, paper could carry my voice further than rumor. Sunday at church, the space around me widened by inches. Claire took my arm and we walked out before coffee. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Emily, let's fix this privately. I typed and erased 3 drafts before sending 2 words. See you. That night I practiced alone. I read each date aloud. I read each sentence without adjectives. I pictured the courthouse steps and how stone takes no sides. It only holds footsteps. I placed the folder in my bag and locked the door. I set the key on the nightstand, a small promise to myself. Show up, speak clearly, end the sentence. 2 weeks became days, then hours. I slept, but not deeply. Before dawn, I got up and checked the bag again. Everything was there. My hands stopped shaking. I stood by the window and let morning enter like a witness. I'd face her under oath. She smiled as if justice was just another sale. The room was colder than I expected. The panel sat behind a long table, their papers stacked like walls. Emily's smile cut through the distance, a rehearsed expression, equal parts calm and confidence. I sat across from her, folder in hand, my palms dry against the paper. The water pitcher between us caught the overhead light, throwing a thin glare across the table. It felt like a stage dressed as a courtroom. David leaned close and whispered, "Steady voice, facts only." The chair of the panel adjusted her glasses. "We'll begin with document review," she said. "Please display the contested signature." The clerk slid 2 sheets forward, side by side. My real signature on the left, the forgery on the right. The difference was small, just a hesitation in the loop of the H, a drag too long at the end. But I could see it. Anyone could, if they cared to look. The panel studied both pages. Emily broke the silence first. "She forgets things," she said lightly. "Maybe she signed twice and didn't recall." I met her eyes. "I may forget pain," I said, "but not betrayal." The chair looked at me for the first time. "Do you wish to respond formally?" "Yes," I said. "I request a handwriting analysis on record." The room stilled. One panelist tapped a pen, once, twice, then stopped. David added, "The previous documents share the same inconsistencies. This pattern supports forgery." Emily's tone sharpened. "Or it shows her confusion repeating." I turned slightly toward the panel. "I've spent months proving I'm not confused," I said. "If I were, I wouldn't have caught the theft in time." The lead arbiter nodded slowly. "Request noted. Handwriting analysis approved." A flicker of irritation crossed Emily's face. Small, but real. Her jaw tensed. She tried to recover with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The clerk gathered the papers again. "These will be submitted to the analyst within 5 days." David whispered, "That's the shift." He was right. I could feel it. The air moved differently now. The panelists weren't humoring me anymore. They were listening. Authority had changed sides without announcement. Emily leaned forward. "I only wanted to protect family interests," she said softly, almost wounded. "This has gone too far." "You took what wasn't yours," I said. "Now the paper will say it, not me." Her hand twitched near the pitcher. She poured water she didn't drink. The sound filled the silence like a metronome for guilt. The arbiter asked for my folder. I passed it forward. The weight of it left my hands lighter. Every receipt, every note, every copy now belonged to the process, not to fear. One panelist flipped through the pages, pausing at the loan notice. "Is this amount connected to the same signature?" "Yes," David said. "Identical formation. The alleged co-signature appears here too." The arbiter's expression shifted from mild interest to mild anger. "We will examine that." Emily tried laughter. "This is absurd," she said. "We're wasting everyone's time." The arbiter replied flatly, "You'll refrain from commentary until we request it." Her face cracked for just a second, too fast for anyone else to see, but I caught it. That mask of control she'd worn since the first forged paper had split along the truth beneath it. And when the expert stood and cleared his throat, his first words finished what I'd started. "This is forged." Reporters waited before I even spoke. The courthouse steps were crowded, microphones angled like weapons, cameras clicking in short bursts. I'd never seen that many faces turn toward mine. The air carried the faint chill of early spring, but I barely felt it. One woman in a gray coat called out, "Do you want to make a statement?" I hesitated, fingers tightening around the scarf at my neck. I hadn't planned to, but silence had cost me enough already. David touched my arm. "Say what you came here to prove," he murmured. So I did. My signature was forged. My savings were stolen. The people who called me confused now have the evidence. I looked straight ahead. That's all. Flashbulbs followed. I stepped down slowly, careful not to trip over the edge of my own story. A man from the local paper approached, notebook half open. "We'd like to feature your case," he said. "It could help others." He didn't say victims, but that's what he meant. "Print it," I told him, "but keep it about what happened, not who I am." The next morning, the article ran. The headline read, "Elder Fraud Through Family Forgery Exposed." Beneath it, my story, stripped of gossip and told in clean sentences. It mentioned the forged loan, the arbitration ruling, and the slow reversal of a daughter's lie. Emily's name wasn't the focus, but everyone knew. Claire brought the paper over with 2 cups of coffee. "You did it," she said. "It's not victory," I told her. "It's release." She smiled softly. Sometimes truth just needed light. Calls began that afternoon, one from a neighbor who'd once crossed the street to avoid me. "We didn't know," she said, her voice small. "I'm so sorry." Another came from a woman I barely knew, asking how to recognize similar signs with her own mother. Each message pressed the shame backward, shifting it to where it belonged. I didn't gloat. I just listened. That evening, I sat by the window with the newspaper folded beside my cup. The print rubbed faintly onto my fingertips. I thought about how easily paper can ruin or restore a life. The same medium that stole my voice now carried it further than I ever could. Emily called once more. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was short. "You've humiliated me." Then a pause, and softer. "Are you happy now?" I deleted it. David stopped by with a thin smile. "The panel's report is final," he said. "The handwriting analysis leaves no doubt. The financial hold is over. Your accounts will be restored within the month." "I thought I'd feel lighter," I said. "You're allowed to feel tired instead," he replied. Outside, a light breeze stirred the discarded newspapers on the steps, pages flipping like restless birds. A few reporters lingered near the curb, discussing who to interview next. I was yesterday's story already, and that was fine. Claire folded the article into my folder of documents, now closed for good. "You kept every paper," she said. "They kept me sane," I answered. "Each one was proof I wasn't losing my mind." Word spread faster than I expected. People who had once praised Emily for her kindness now whispered about deceit. Her charm no longer worked where facts had taken root. By midweek, her social media vanished. By the weekend, her car was gone from the driveway. I walked past her house once, curtains drawn, mailbox stuffed, no movement inside. I didn't feel triumph, just distance. I thought of the girl she used to be, the one who used to help me bake cookies and steal the first one off the tray. I let that memory stay unpunished. The reporter called again for a follow-up piece, this time about broader patterns of abuse. "You've started something," he said. "Other families are reaching out." "Good," I said. "Let the story work harder than I can." He promised to send me a copy of the full article when it printed in Sunday's edition. I thanked him and hung up. My reflection in the window looked older but steadier. Justice doesn't heal you, it just stops the bleeding. When the sun dipped, I poured the last of the coffee and closed the paper for the final time. The headlines had moved on, but my name had been restored to itself. Emily's, though. It was whispered differently now. She vanished from town within a week. Silence finally sounded safe. It came on a Tuesday when the mail slid through the slot and landed clean on the hall runner. The envelope had weight and a raised seal that pressed faintly against my thumb. I carried it to the table and opened it with the small knife I keep in the drawer, careful, steady, deliberate. David's letter said what months of fear could not erase. The account was restored, the loan voided, the trust reversed. He congratulated me without flourishes. Plain words, confirmed dates. A closing line that read, "Your name stands alone." I read it twice and set it beside the old calculator that had sat through every bad call. Paper ended what paper began. I called him. "Thank you," I said. "You did the work," he answered. "Take a day to feel it. Then lock the drawer and live." "Living starts now," I said. After we hung up, I walked through the rooms like a visitor seeing the place for the first time. The hallway no longer held whispers. The kitchen felt honest again. On the counter sat a small box Emily had left months ago. Miscellaneous things, her handwriting on the lid. I breathed once and lifted it. I didn't plan a purge. I chose a rhythm, one box at a time. I folded the apron she'd bought for me, the one that came with a joke about messes I made when baking. Into the box. A stack of recipes she streamlined. Into the box. I found the spare key she had copied without asking and closed my hand around it. "Keep it as evidence?" Claire asked when she arrived with coffee. "No," I said. "Keep it as a boundary learned." We set the boxes by the door. No speech, no ceremony, just order. She watched my face for regret and found none. Peace came in practical steps. Mid-afternoon, I called the locksmith. "Change 2 locks," I said, "front and back." He came before dusk and finished in under an hour. He showed me how the new deadbolt felt when it caught. "Solid," he said. "You'll hear the difference." I did. A soft click that meant finality. Claire sat with me on the porch while the sun softened across the street. The old porch light above us hummed. I held the letter again, the seal catching the last of the day. "It's over," she said. "It's closed," I corrected. "Over is for stories that forget." She nodded. "What will you tell people who ask for the full ending?" "The truth," I said. "It returned what was mine and took nothing I still need." We let that sit. A car passed, slow, then turned. The neighborhood had gone quiet since the article. Fewer eyes on my windows, fewer heads together. The same houses, less noise. Claire broke the quiet with a half smile. "You going to keep that calculator out?" "It stayed through every lie," I said. "It can stay through this." She laughed softly. "Fair." I went inside for 2 mugs and came back with tea. We didn't talk much. People think healing sounds like speeches. It sounds like breathing without an audience. My phone buzzed once on the table. A message from an unknown number. "Please don't ruin what's left." I deleted it and blocked the caller. I didn't need to ask who it was. Pity dresses up as reconciliation when consequences finally show. If I let pity rewrite the past, I would invite harm back in. Claire saw my jaw set. "Want me to say the obvious?" she asked. "Say it." "You owe her nothing." "Not even a goodbye." "Especially not that." We shared a quiet smile, and then a small, precise dialogue that cleared the last fog. "She'll try again. She has no key. She'll find another door. This house knows my name." We drifted into lighter talk, a grocery list, a joke about the porch steps that always creak in the wrong places. Normal things. I felt my shoulders unclench in a way I hadn't since the cashier slid that first warning under the folder. Safety, I learned, isn't loud. It's consistent. Night edged in. I turned the porch light on and looked up at it. Ordinary brightness, nothing dramatic. Enough to see the path from street to door. Enough to say welcome only to those who were welcome. Inside, I put David's letter in the drawer and locked it. Not because I feared it would be stolen, but because some victories deserve a place. I carried the last box to the car and set it in the trunk. No shaking hands, no quick breaths, just closure behaving like routine. I stood in the doorway and listened to the quiet. It didn't warn, it didn't accuse. It simply held the shape of my life without argument. The house finally felt mine again. She came back wearing humility like a costume. It was late afternoon when I heard the knock. I knew that rhythm, too soft to startle, too rehearsed to be real. I opened the door, and there she was, suitcase in hand, eyes red but dry. "I thought maybe we could talk," she said. Her voice trembled on purpose. The smell of fresh coffee from the kitchen drifted between us. I didn't invite her in. She stepped over the threshold anyway, pretending it was habit. I watched her glance around, taking in the same furniture she'd once moved without asking, the same clock that had marked every argument. Only now, the house was quiet in a way that belonged to me. She handed me an envelope. "I wrote everything down," she said. "I never meant to hurt you. The words slid out smooth as oil. I didn't answer. I just set the letter on the kitchen table beside my cup. "You're here for forgiveness," I said. "Or money." Her smile was thin. Both would help. Inside the envelope, the letter was written in neat blue ink. It began with regret and ended with calculation. Lines like, "I see where I went wrong," followed by, "Maybe you could help me start over." The manipulation hid between the lines, wrapped in guilt that wasn't hers to claim. I folded it once and pushed it back toward her. "You taught me what help costs." She blinked fast. "You really think I planned all of it?" "I think you planned enough," I said. "Enough to sign my name without asking. Enough to watch me unravel before anyone believed me." She opened her mouth, closed it, and reached for the letter again. Her hand shook, but not from remorse. "I've been sleeping in my car, she said softly, watching for reaction. I didn't move. "That's sad," I said, "but consequences usually are." Her expression hardened. "You sound like everyone else." "I hope so," I said. "It means the truth's finally louder than your story." The silence between us stretched. The ticking clock filled it, steady, final. I could see her measuring me, looking for cracks, the way she always had. When she didn't find any, she looked toward the door. Claire's voice called faintly from the back room. "You want me to stay?" "No," I said. "She's just leaving." Emily froze for a second, suitcase strap in hand. "I thought you'd changed," she said. "I did," I answered. "That's why you can't stay." She turned without another word. Her shoes clicked once on the tile, once on the porch, then faded down the path. I watched through the window as she reached the gate and didn't look back. The porch light caught her shoulder for a moment, then let her go. I sat down at the table again. The coffee had gone lukewarm, but I drank it anyway. The air smelled like peace, ordinary, quiet, earned. Claire came in and sat across from me. "You all right?" she asked. "I'm steady," I said. She nodded toward the empty cup. "You think she'll come back?" "No," I said. "She only visits what she still owns." We didn't talk after that. The house held its breath, then exhaled into calm. I folded the letter once more and dropped it in the trash. Not out of anger, just to make space. Some things don't need archiving. Through the window, dusk thickened over the yard. I watched the outline of the gate until it disappeared into shadow. Then I turned off the porch light. I didn't need it anymore. Her footsteps never crossed my door again. I still keep that cashier's note in my wallet. It's creased now, the paper softened from years of being folded and unfolded. The ink has faded, but I can still read the words, "Don't sign anything." When I touch it, I remember the tremor in that young man's voice, how his warning sounded like a whisper from the future. It wasn't about a loan, it was about permission, what I gave away without noticing, and what I finally took back. Some mornings, I take the note out and smooth it flat on the counter. The sunlight hits it the same way it used to hit the stack of bills I once thought were harmless. The warmth feels different now, steady, earned, not borrowed from trust. Claire says I've made peace. Maybe I have. The house no longer watches me like it's waiting for the next betrayal. The walls hold silence that comforts instead of accuses. I brew my coffee and sit where I used to sit while sorting through evidence and bills. Now I read letters from neighbors who've joined the workshops I started at the community center. They ask about fraud alerts, safe signatures, power of attorney, clauses. They tell me how their children roll their eyes but listen anyway. I smile each time. Change doesn't start with the loud ones. It starts with the quiet warnings that survive. At one of the sessions, an older woman stayed behind after everyone left. She held her checkbook like it was a confession. "My son asked me to co-sign his loan," she said. "He's not a bad person, but I felt uneasy." I told her, uneasy is usually truth trying to get your attention. Then I shared my story, not the scandal, not the betrayal, but the lesson. She nodded, tears sitting at the edge of her lashes. "Don't sign anything," I said softly. "Not until it feels like yours." That sentence has become my refrain. Simple, ordinary, protective. People laugh when I say it like an oath, but they remember it. I see it land, the way they tuck it into their thoughts like I once tucked that note into my wallet. Each repetition feels like a small reversal of what was taken from me. Sometimes I wonder if Emily ever hears those words and flinches. Maybe she's far away, somewhere trying to build a version of her story that fits better. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her anything at all. Distance did what forgiveness couldn't. It kept peace intact. The last time I saw her name was on a small forwarded envelope with no return address. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Claire still visits on Fridays. We drink coffee on the porch, watching the same sunlight crawl across the yard. She jokes that I should frame the note before it turns to dust. It's not for framing, I tell her. It's for reminding. She laughs. You always were stubborn. That's what saved me, I reply. Every story I tell now begins with a warning and ends with a truth. Betrayal doesn't vanish. It just changes its shape until it fits into a lesson. Mine fits inside a wallet, thin, worn, folded once across the middle. Sometimes I run my thumb along its edge and feel the faint ridge where the pen once pressed too hard. That tiny indentation is my favorite part, proof that someone cared enough to write what I couldn't yet say. The workshops keep growing. I never meant to start anything big, but people bring friends, and friends bring their parents. We share coffee, not pity. We pass around pamphlets and stories, not shame. The town has changed. Maybe just a little. Maybe enough. The note lies beside my cup as I finish writing reminders for the next session. Its corners lift slightly, curling toward the light. I let them. Some things don't need to stay perfectly flat to hold their meaning. I fold it again, slide it back into the pocket where it's lived all these years, and whisper the same words that once saved me. They still sound right. They still sound like armor. I sign only my truth now. Did you enjoy this story? Tell me which city you're listening from. I read every comment. If the story touched you can support the channel with a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this every day. Your encouragement really helps. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what moment stayed with you. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next life story with respect and gratitude.